Okay. And good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Courier Journal's primary election coverage. I'm Kirby Adams, joined by politics reporters here at the Courier Journal, Joe Sanka and Livia Kraft. And, we know that polls here in the Eastern time zone closed about 30 minutes ago, and in the Central time zone of Kentucky, they're going to close 30 minutes from now. So we've had an interesting day as far as weather goes. I know TARC was offering free rides to anybody who wanted to go to their polling place, but the weather may have affected the turnout a bit.
Yeah, turnout was already expected to be very low. Secretary of State Michael Adams projected that it was going to be around 10%, which would be the lowest in Kentucky in many years. And with rain all over the state, that certainly didn't help matters. So that's probably going to lead to turnout of about that percent. I think Jefferson County, a couple hours before the polls closed, they were right around 10%. So it's going to be pretty low. And typically in elections with low turnout, sometimes you get some unexpected results. It's the people that are really motivated to show up who go there, and those who aren't very enthusiastic about their candidates tend to stay home.
Makes sense. Yeah, and so what about, which of the races are you two really looking at closely today and into the future?
I think definitely the Republican nomination for governor. There are 12 people running. Yeah. It's
full
been
house.
A very full house, very crowded. It's been pretty contentious for the past month at least. Very expensive race. So we are watching that to see who is going to likely face Beshear in the fall.
You know, one of the questions that we know that you all have been asking a lot is how much money have certain candidates put into their campaigns thus far, and who are we looking at who has maybe spent the most?
Kelly Kraft has definitely spent more than any other candidate, and the large majority of the funds she raised were just own personal loans that she gave to her campaign. She loaned her campaign about $9.3 million. She has spent about that amount in her campaign. She's really dominated the airwaves. She went up on Christmas, and she's been up on the air pretty much ever since then. And she's aired about half of the total ads that have been aired in the primary are her campaign ads. And she also has a PAC that has supported her, which was funded by her husband, who was a coal billionaire, Joe Kraft. So she's definitely dominated the airwaves. Daniel Cameron has also had a PAC come to his aid to help him with a couple $1 million worth of TV ads, but Kraft has definitely spent more than anyone.
You know, you really kind of saw you saw Kelly Kraft's ads a lot in the beginning, and like I said, I didn't realize they had started that far back. You said December?
Yeah, it was Christmas.
Yeah.
So she started airing ads, and I think there was only a week or two where she went dark, but she's been up almost continuously.
And then everybody else kind of seemed to jump on the airwaves.
Yeah.
It seemed like a couple weeks ago. I didn't know if that was late or if it's just that we had seen so much of her. But
it was about a month ago. The Bluegrass Freedom Action, which was a PAC supporting Cameron, they kind of came onto the scene. There was a poll that came out showing that Kraft was cutting into his lead. That's when they came on the air and they started kind of countering the negative attack ads that have been directed from the Kraft PAC against Cameron. They started directing negative ads on Kraft. And there's been a solid month of multi-million-dollar ad buy hitting her. And of course, we had another poll from the same pollster came out this weekend showing that Cameron had extended his lead over Kraft and kind of fallen a bit. So Cameron's really hasn't spent very much on his own campaign on TV ads. It's really the PAC that's come in to help him out.
Well, you know who loves that are the media outlets, right? Yeah. They all love that. What about the debates? It seemed to me that was a big issue with people showing up, candidates showing up and not showing up, and.
Yeah, I mean, the debates really started in March, and they started relatively calm and civil, and then really first week of May, it just kind of went off the rails with the KET debate, which was the first time Cameron and Kraft were in the same space, because one or the other would just skip a debate or two or something. So they met, and then Eric Dieters was also there, and he was
Very Dieter's
very present and excited to be there. So it turned into a big situation, and then ever since then you have some smaller debates, but it's been, like Kraft isn't there, or
Yes.
someone else is not there. So they've been a little less contentious, but they've still been a little there.
Exciting, perhaps?
Yes.
So a question that we know that you've had is Daniel Cameron is running for governor. Is he still working as Attorney General at this point? I would think so.
He is.
Yeah.
He is. He does.
But if he wins governor, though, then
Well, he cannot be both. So
yes, he cannot be both.
He would become the governor.
right,
yeah.
right. So but is he? I guess the question is more along the lines of, as he's campaigning, is he able to continue to do his job as the state would hope? Who knows? Is that not a fair question?
That is probably a matter of opinion and what you consider to be Attorney General doing a good job. He certainly appears to be trying to do some things.
Perhaps what if he loses, does he get his job back? But he hasn't really let go of his job.
Right.
No. Well, until
Yes.
He
through the
gets
end
to
of the year.
finish his,
Yes.
finish his term, but
Yeah.
then he couldn't be on the ballot twice, so he's not going to
Yes.
be in office anymore.
So are some races called super early and then some others come in super late? What would be behind that?
Yeah, so we might get some called at the top of the hour here. Bashir is technically in a primary. He has two candidates who aren't expected to mount much of a challenge. So we may get an early call a little bit after 7 o'clock
Okay.
in that primary. But the Republican primary for governor, that one's probably going to be a while because that is expected to be competitive. Cameron's definitely the front runner, but it's not going to be like a blowout. He's not going to get 60, 70, 80% of the vote like Bashir might get.
When we know who's running against each other, elections in November, when can you actually register? What is the last day to register to vote?
I actually looked this up because I knew you were going to ask. It is 4 p.m. local time on October 10th. So you have several months to register, change your party, or anything like that. So
Okay. Or change your party, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you might decide that after you see who wins in the elections today.
well, it won't matter in the general, but for the next primary round, yes.
Is there a chance, this is another question that you're asking, is there a chance that Kentucky can go to a runoff election for governor in November?
No, we stopped doing that in the 1990s, I believe. It used to be where you had to get 40% of the votes in order to avoid a runoff. Now you can get 23%, and as long as you have a plurality, you go on to the general.
So what else do we need to know about the primary elections today? What's important to know?
Well,
Well-
the down ballot race, I think, is that I'm going to look at is the Secretary of State's race.
Okay.
Where you have Michael Adams, Republican Secretary of State. He's gained a lot of bipartisan praise for the work he's done, especially the election during the pandemic, expanding early voting, helping with mail-in voting in that specific election, purging the voter rolls of 300,000 people who had moved away or had died. He's facing a challenge from I'd say probably the top challenger has is Steve Nipper, who's kind of embraced a lot of the unproven conspiracy theories about how the voting machines switching votes, being connected to the internet, all the kind of Mike Lindell kind of conspiracy stuff. So we're going to see a lot of states last year had candidates like that who tried to be elected to Secretary of State and be the chief election officials, and almost all of them lost. So we're going to see in Kentucky how Republican voters feel about that, whether they want someone like Adams, who's pretty much strongly rejected all of that and said there's nothing there, or someone who's a true believer.
Well, Olivia, I know you want to answer this question.
Oh,
Here
yeah.
it comes.
Okay.
All right. Can a governor really tear apart a Department of Education for a whole state?
No, they do not currently have the authority to do that. They can ask, if elected, they can ask the legislature to tear apart a department, restructure, whatever. But in terms of doing it themselves on day one, which is what a lot of people have kind of campaigned on, no, they can't. They can't do that.
though. I always like it when you break down what's reality and then what's just campaign rhetoric, what's campaign fluff that they're using in all those ads we were talking about.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's going to get interesting, or at least we hope it gets interesting, because you two get to cover it for the next many months.
Yeah, it's the biggest race. The governor's race is really the biggest race in the country this year, until we get into the presidential primaries early next year. This is really the biggest show in town.
All right, so lots of work for you two to do. And I know you actually have to go back to your desks now to continue to report on this.
We're missing lots of.
I know you are. Thank you for being here and answering our questions, because we had a lot of questions, right? And we'll be back around, I think, 9 o'clock, if I have that right. And we have reporters out at all the different campaign offices, or I should say parties and that type of thing.